Hey, what's up? Welcome to another edition of It's All Good. I'm Lucas with a K, doing this with my best friend. His patients know him as Dr. Eric Lane, but I just call him Eric. Eric, are you there?
I'm doing good. You guys got an hour change, so we're 2 hours different now.
That's right. So we do this early in the morning because that's when we feel like things can really start grinding early in the morning. I do an early morning radio show. Eric gets up at 1:30 in the morning, does the Mark Wahlberg lifestyle, which I don't know how you do that, but you do it.
I got up at 1:30 this morning. I have no idea why, but I couldn't go back to sleep. But there's an interesting fact about this hour change that I read this week.
What is it?
Sleep is so important that in the springtime when you lose an hour, you guys lose an hour, the day that you lose an hour, cardiac emergencies go up 25%, and a reversal occurs in the fall when you actually gain an hour. If people don't think sleep is important, that fact alone shows you that on those 2 days we have a 25% increase in cardiac emergencies versus it going the other way when you get an extra hour of sleep.
Yeah, well, that does make sense because you know me, I used to come to your house all the time. And you try to wake me up. I was like, I need to sleep.
You and LeBron James with your 12 hours.
Yes, you mentioned me in the same name as LeBron James, who is my hero. I love you. All right, so it's all good. This is basically a podcast where we talk about things that are that'll help you do good things in your life and things that are positive. Last week, just real quick, we're going to review. Last week, we were supposed to notice people and try to help people who are in need. Also, we talked about the red light, green light, where when you judge people, you stop yourself from judging people and accept people. So those are a couple things that I tried to do better this week. Did you?
Yes, I've been very conscious because you know me. Me and you used to go to Vegas and just watch people, and sometimes it wasn't always the kindest thought. I would even take pictures of people. So it is definitely a challenge that I have to do. The other night, my wife and I went to the movie, and I don't know if this is correct or not. I said, I'm going to sit outside of Walmart as she went in to shop.
Yeah.
And I physically watch people go in and out. And I really think people dress up to go in there. I don't think that's who they are. There is no way that some of the people do that. So I have to be really conscious, as you know me, and I did much better this week.
Okay, good. Okay, so let's talk about our new format on It's All Good podcast. We're going to do 10 minutes of mental, 10 minutes of physical, and 5 minutes of spiritual. So today's topic right off the bat, something that you taught me was this week was just say no. There's so many things in my life that I say yes to that put a lot of stress on me. And I'm not a stressful person. But tell us about just say no at least 3 times this week. What was that about?
So just say no is difficult for people. I tend to want to please people. I think being the middle child, I'm not sure if that's how we are raised, but some people are just born that we just look out for other people. We notice them, we see their needs, and so when somebody asks us to do something, it's very difficult to say no because we think we're going to offend them. But I was taught a few years ago a simple way to deal with it. The idea is this, that when I say yes to something, I am in the same sentence saying no to something else. It's just the way it is. We have a limited amount of time every day. So when somebody asks us something that may be noble, it may be church, it may be community, it may be at our schools, it's easy at that time to say, that's a great, great project you're doing. And it's something that I need to consider. But when I say yes to this, I might have to say no to some things in my life that really I need to attend to now. And there's nothing wrong with telling somebody at this time, I can't say yes to this because I really need to focus on these areas. Now, maybe in 3 months, my time frame may change and I may be able to revisit that. But we've got to remember that every time we say yes to something, we are instantly saying no to something else.
So the other thing that I caught on that was time is our most valuable commodity. And sometimes we short sell our time because we're using our time to do those things that we said yes to that we don't, and I started thinking about, man, literally time is the only thing you can't put a price tag on.
Yeah, time is it's the only commodity that we have. And a lot of times when we say yes to something that we don't really want to do and we're not going to do it fully, we're just not really being transparent and we're not having a lot of integrity with that person. And I would much rather somebody tell me, I can't do that now, or I have things that are higher priority, so that I'm not waiting for somebody to do a job at 10% because they're trying to please me. And then the frustration grows and then the relationship becomes a little bit marred. So honesty is part of that. And it's just an easy way to not offend people, I think. And I think most people say, hey, I understand completely. And it allows us to focus on those things that we really want to do in life and those things that are really important in life.
Okay, so what I want to do for this week is I want to find out 3 things in my life. And I have to sit and think about what 3 things do I need to say no to. And it may not even be to a person. It may just be something in my life that I'm doing that I just got to say, I got to quit doing that. It's wasting time. It's not doing anybody any good. So this week's challenge for me is to find 3 things in my life that I need to say no to, and then actually say no to it and see how it goes.
Yeah, Brian Johnson, great guy who runs Optimize.me. He's running a coaching program now. He talks about -1s and +1s. And we always talk about things we need to start doing. But he says equally important is we've got to say, what are things we're doing that are really destroying us? Those are what he calls -1s. If we just eliminated those this year, if once a week you eliminated a -1, if you drink too much, if you go to bed too late, if you watch too much TV, you think about the incremental changes over a year. It's not 365%, it's like 1,400%. So just focusing on areas of your life that you say, I know I shouldn't be doing that. And then the other thing about saying no is there's probably something on your task list that's been there for 4, 5, 6 years that you just keep putting up. For some reason, you think you have to do this. You think it's a goal in your life. Sometimes it's best to just say, you know what, it's obviously not important because I haven't touched it in 5 years or I haven't touched it in 3 months. Just kick it off your task list so your brain's not constantly feeling guilty about something that you really don't want to do anyway.
Love it. Okay, so that's my challenge for that. The other thing is, as you being my life coach, you've helped me lose 50 pounds. You've helped me save money in my savings account. You've helped me with my spiritual life and become closer to God. So there's a lot of things that in our life coaching sessions that I've learned from you. But the one thing I want you to hit on real quick before we move on to our physical topic is I was so infatuated with the nose breather that I sent it to like 10 different people, and they all couldn't believe the difference it makes when you breathe through your nose and your mouth. And I've been a mouth breather my whole life. Touch on that real quick for people who have no idea about how important it is to breathe.
Well, in the book, The Oxygen Advantage, we learn a lot about the advantages of nose breathing versus mouth breathing. So Patrick McGowan, I think he's Irish. He's got quite an accent, but he talks about the research. Now, there's a few things that are very interesting about nose breathers versus mouth breathers. We are born as nose breathers. Nose breathing increases the pressure, so the CO2 actually delivers oxygen to our organs and tissues at a higher rate. We also lower our blood pressure, we lower our heart rate, and we go into the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the nervous system we want to be. It's calm, it's relaxed, as opposed to the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight. So the lion chases me. So if a lion chases you, breathe through your mouth. But most of the time, we want to breathe through our nose. We actually become much healthier. The other thing that's interesting is when they studied people over the years, they found that if kids nose breathe, most of them would not need braces. It actually causes malformation of the jaw and the mouth because of what the tongue does. So it's an interesting thing. There's so many health benefits. At nighttime, Patrick recommends tape your mouth shut. Now, he says you have to be a certain age, but force yourself to nose breathe. And we have patients that say, gosh, I'm so congested, I can't breathe through my nose. Even if you're congested, try it for about a minute. The nitrous oxide that is secreted actually starts to open up the nasal membranes, and you'll be surprised within a few minutes that actually you breathe a lot better.
Yeah, I tried those exercises and did that, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually incredible. Who knew that breathing would be, because we all just breathe, we just feel like we breathe normal. Well, when you actually think about it and you close your mouth and you just start breathing through your nose throughout the day, I didn't think I could breathe through my nose that well, but then now I can. So I just think it's amazing, and the health benefits from it are incredible. So I just wanted people to be aware of the nose breathing, and they could actually watch. I sent that video that you sent me to texted like 10 different people, and they were like amazed by it.
It's great stuff.
Yeah, and they also show the facials, the face of people who are nose breathers, and you could just tell if you're a nose breather or a mouth breather. And
I think a lot of Walmart people are face breathers.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. All right, let's go to physical. So on my radio show this week, I have a food expert that comes on. Her name is Paige Alexander. She's actually used to be my Sunday school teacher in church. She's got a food blog, and she has gone completely off sugar. And she preaches about no sugar and how sugar is like crack. It's as bad as any drug out on the market. And we've been experiencing this no sugar for the last 14 days. And I got to tell you, it's hard to do if you've been eating sugar your whole life, which most of us have, and you go from eating sugar to not eating sugar. It's almost like detoxing, what I would imagine somebody who had smoked or drank or did drugs, that it's a hard thing to get off of. But how important it is to get off of sugar, because sugar can literally ruin your life as much as drugs can. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, there's a new book out by Gary Taubes, The Case Against Sugar, and it's got a provocative cover because you see this noose that looks like one of those sour candy ropes. And his book is absolutely phenomenal, and he's not the first. There's so much documentation on sugar. When people talk to us about nutrition, losing weight, getting healthy, there's a lot of ways you can get healthy. There's a lot of ways that you can increase your activity levels and become a super athlete. But the common denominator among all of them, if you look at diets across the board, because you'll have somebody from Eastern that is a high carb diet. You'll have now a keto, higher protein. You'll even have high fat. You'll see some benefits with all of those if the one denominator is the same, if sugar is eliminated, especially refined sugar. It is so toxic to our systems. It creates so many problems. So obviously when we go off of it, it is horrendous. In fact, mice addicted to cocaine and sugar will go to sugar 8 or 9 times out of 10 over the cocaine. It's that quick. It acts fast. We hit it when we come home because we're stressed, and it gives us that little bit of a rush. But it creates such a metabolic issue within our system because insulin rises, and there's a whole physiological response. So the best thing people can do is just get rid of sugar at first. Just say, I'm going to get rid of sugar, get it out of your house, and look on labels because most people have no idea how much added sugar is in some of the products that they eat.
Let me ask you this question about the sugar. How long does it take to get off sugar? Is it 4 days? Is it 15 days? Is it 30 days? How long does it take to get that out of your system?
Most people within about 14 days. Phil Fatone, who's been around for years, who trains a lot of high-end athletes, and he's a nutritionist as well, he says about 14 days. In fact, his program eliminates sugar 100% for 14 days, and then he begins to add back proponents of sugar like fruits. People think, well, fruits aren't bad. Fruits are still a sugar, especially fruit juices. The biggest fallacy we've been taught for years is like orange juice. Orange juice is really healthy in the morning. You're better off having a Coca-Cola in the morning than a glass of orange juice. It actually causes a higher insulin release than the Coca-Cola with sugar in it. So we don't want fruit juices. And in his program, he starts to add fruits back after about 14 days to see how your body responds, because some fruits have a much higher glycemic index, which is that number that shows how quickly your blood sugar raises in response to that sugar coming in.
I think the reason I'm diabetic is because my dad loved orange juice and would always have a ton of orange juice in the house. And so as a kid growing up drinking tons of orange juice, I'm telling you, I'm almost certain that may be one of the reasons. I know people say it's hereditary and all that stuff, but I got to be honest with you. I was talking to Paige about this on the radio. Think about when you were a kid going to school. You got packed a lunch. You got a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on white Wonder Bread. That turns into all sugar. Then you had chips, turns into all sugar. And then you got either a ding dong or a zinger, all sugar. And then you got chocolate milk in your thermos. Could you imagine the grams of sugar that you got at lunch when you went to school?
It's insane. And if you just go look at old videos of like the 60s or the early 70s. My kids were watching it the other day, and they're like, holy cow, everybody's skinny. High fructose corn syrup came on the market, I think, in the mid-70s. Coca-Cola was a big part of that because it was cheap. It could allow them to produce it. And high fructose corn syrup is even worse than refined sugar. But everything has it in there. And, in the 60s or 70s, we didn't have the way that foods are processed now, but everything, it is crazy. Go through your pantry and your fridge. People won't have anything to eat today if they get rid of sugar in their house.
I know. So I think that's a great challenge. It will make you happier. We do things on this podcast to make people better. It's all good. The other thing I want to talk about is drinking enough water a day. I keep going through these phases where I'm like, well, I'm going to drink half my weight in ounces of water, and then I got to pee all day long, and then I just stop drinking water. Not stop, but I don't drink as much. How important is drinking enough water per day?
Water is it's essential. I mean, you hear people say 90% of our body is water. We need the fluid, and we need enough of it, partially because we drink a lot of other stuff that actually causes us to be dehydrated. If people drink sugar-substituted sodas or regular sodas or other things or coffee, just to catch up with that, you've got to double it. But we want to get half of our body weight in ounces. Now, some people do too much. We have patients that drink far too much water, which can be a problem as well because it can actually get the electrolytes out of your body. So if people are drinking a lot of water but their urine is clear, that's not a great thing to brag about. Patients come and say, oh, my urine's clear, I drink so much water. We want a little bit of a tint. So some of those people may not be absorbing it. So if you just add a lemon or a pinch of salt to your water so your body can absorb it a little better, especially if you're only drinking 80 to 100 ounces a day, because your body definitely should be able to absorb that. So I'm not saying to always look at your urine color, but it's important to know if your urine's always clear.
I got you. Okay, the last thing on physical is the new cardio that you had me that you set me up on. When I used to go to the gym to do cardio, I used to do as fast and as hard as I could. I would be completely out of breath, and my pulse and my what's it called? My
your heart rate.
Yeah, my heart rate would be at 180, 185, and I think, oh yeah, I got my heart rate up to 185 or 190 or so. Tell me, the new thing that you told me was your age minus 180, and then you do that. Explain why that's important and how to do that.
So Mark Allen, who was an Ironman champion, I think he's won a lot, maybe 5 or 6. Years ago when he was struggling, he went to Phil Maffetone, and this is sort of Phil's formula for cardio. Phil said, you've got to slow down to go fast. So Phil's idea with Mark was we want to increase your times in the Ironman, but he also revolutionized what I think is that fat loss zone. We take your age minus the 180. So I'm 52, so that would put me at 118, if my math is right. No, would that put me at 128? 128, there we go. And so if I'm in horrible shape, I could subtract 10 from that, be at 118. But if I've trained for a long time, I could add 5 to that, so it puts me at about 133. Now, that zone may not be a lot for a high-end athlete. In fact, Mark Allen, for the first few weeks, was frustrated because he's like, I'm going so slow. I'm not having to do anything. It's just my heart rate. I need to work harder than this. And over time, he broke all of these records. But what they found over time with this zone is the body is in an aerobic phase, not an anaerobic phase. Aerobic phase is when your body uses fat as its energy stores. When we go above that into an anaerobic phase, we're burning glycogen, sugar. And what we find out later is after those high-intensity sessions, we tend to try to continue to burn sugar a little bit and not fat. So if you can get that heart rate in that sweet spot, the Phil Maffetone sweet spot, you're going to be much more of a fat-burning machine. And that's not to say you can't do HIIT training occasionally, because those are always good to mix it up. But if you want to lose a lot of fat more, stay in that zone 2 to zone 3 if you look at some of your heart monitors.
I love that. So I've been doing that. I still sweat. I don't huff and puff as much, But in my mind, I'm thinking like, this is not burning up sugar. This is burning up fat. Because a lot of times we burn up sugar and then we go home, and after we do a lot of cardio, then you want to eat more sugar. So yeah, this is something new I've never tried before. So I'm in the process of doing it, and I'll be able to do a testimony about it when it's all done.
The other thing that's great about that is when we get exhausted and we get burned and we work too hard and we get fatigued, we get injured. So if we're working at that higher levels, and this is what Phil says, we not only get hurt and can't train, but we also produce a lot more cortisol with the strenuous training that is the opposite of the hormones that help us burn fat. So athletes don't recover very well. They're getting injured more. So this slowdown to go fast, it has got great advantages across all the areas of fitness.
Okay, so it's 180 minus your age, and then you can add 5 if you want to. And how often are we supposed to be doing cardio? Is this an every day for 30 minutes thing? Well, what do you suggest?
I do cardio every day after my weight training for about 30 minutes, but for me, it's purely to keep the heart going good and also to keep fat loss down. But it depends on people's training goals. Some of our elite athletes, some of our endurance athletes, they're training 2 to 3 hours a day. So for most people, I would recommend 30 minutes at least 5 to 6 times a week just for general health. That may sound very extreme for people, but the benefits will be unbelievable. There's no return on investment that they're going to get from this. In fact, I was reading a book the other day that said it's like getting a little bit of Prozac every morning when you exercise. It is that powerful.
Yeah. So those are 2 things that we've hit on today. We've hit on mental, we've hit on physical. Now I want to touch on spiritual too, because I think we have to have balance in our life on everything that we do. And when you and I broke this down years ago, that you got to be able to, connect with things in your life, and your spirit is part of who you are. Your soul is who you are. You can't neglect it. Just like you can't do too much. You can't spend 8 hours at the gym every day and not do anything with your mind or your spirit, and vice versa on everything. So I want to talk about spiritual for a minute, and how do we feel our soul? I was looking at we were talking about this on the radio the other day about all the different planets that are out there, and they found some new planets, and there's a new thing every time scientists look. They're impressed with how many different things there are out there. And it's not just by coincidence that we're on the earth and we're just walking around the earth and we're just here and there's nothing to it. There's got to be a bigger picture. And so I'm a huge believer in God. I prayed a lot. I know that God exists. I know that Jesus Christ exists. And so I just want people to try to figure out in their life, how do you balance everything? Physical, mental, and spiritual. And then what kind of spiritual things do you need to do to make sure that your body feels like everything is going good, your mind feels good, your spirit feels good? Those are the times in my life when I balance everything out on a daily basis, that I feel closer to God. What kind of advice can you give to that?
Boy, that you nailed that. I was thinking this week, I had gone to a John Wooden basketball camp with my older brother. I must have been 10 or 11. And John Wooden. John Wooden is, I wouldn't even say arguably the best basketball coach in college. I think without a doubt he is. And I've read about this. I remember when I went to the camp, the first day we were there, John Wooden, guess what he had us do? You might know this, but what do you think he had us do for the first hour at the camp? We're ready to learn drills. We're ready to shoot. We're ready to have Jabbar come in and Bill, who else did he have? Bill Walton. He had all these players. What do you think he did that first hour of the first day?
Set your goals.
That's a good guess. He taught us, like he taught all of his players, how to put their socks on.
Wow.
I mean, we are talking, I don't know how old John was at the time, because he must have been still in his late 60s or 70s. He showed us, and we're thinking, this is crazy. But he's showing us how to put it on, how to keep the wrinkles out, how to put them on fast and effectively. Because he said, you know what, guys? If you have a crease there, if you don't put them on right, guess what happens? You get a blister, which means you can't perform, which means you can't practice, which means you're going to create a problem within our team, and it's going to let our team down. You've got to learn how to put your socks on, and then he taught us how to tie our shoes.
Yeah.
And I've thought about that so many times in my life. And I think when you mention spiritual, I think everybody believes that there's a why. If you don't believe there's a why that you're here, it's really hard to get up every day and try to make the world a better place. And for me, that why is that there's something way bigger than us all. I believe it's my Heavenly Father or God, and I believe in Jesus Christ as well. But I think everybody has a connection to something greater than themselves. And that has to dominate. That is the putting on our socks. That's tying our shoes. If that does not come first, if we're not in alignment with the best of us, with a moral code, with values, with integrity, we can do all the other things, and we can appear to succeed at some level. But that's where pain for a lot of people comes up over and over again, because they look in the mirror and they're not doing the things that they know they should be. So I believe we must tackle that first and foremost. In the mornings, that's got to sort of be our compass. What are we doing? And we have to put the socks on and tie the shoes the right way, and everything else falls into place better. It doesn't mean life's easy, because I think we're here to grow and learn. But when you were talking about that, I thought about John Wooden teaching us how to put our socks on.
Yeah, well, I do have a soft spot in my heart for John Wooden, because I also, when I was a junior, going to be a senior in high school, and I thought I was a great shooter, he taught me, I went to his camp, and he taught me two specific things that really changed my shot. I thought I was a really good shooter, and when I left that camp, I was a much better shooter. And so I have a soft spot for John Wooden. Plus, I got to we were in the same complex as the Dallas Cowboys, and I got to eat all my meals with looking over at this was 1986 or 87. So I got to see a lot of the guys that I would watch on TV, got to eat lunch with them and all that. So that was a great experience. But real quick, going back to spiritual, wrapping things up on spiritual, I got to tell you that praying for me what is a game changer, and praying for specific things in my life where before I would just pray for just generic things. And the more specific I got in my life, and the more that I waited for the Holy Ghost. If you read the scriptures, you know that the Holy Ghost's job is to communicate to you through God. And so I just got to tell you, the more specific things that you pray for, and then you wait for an answer, and you listen for the Holy Ghost to fill your mind with things, it has changed my whole life. It's helped me write my book. In literally 2 weeks, I wrote my book, and everything came to my mind that I wanted to do. And I know that God loves all of us, and he'll help all of us if we allow him to help us. So those are some challenges this week that we want to give you. This has been a great edition of It's All Good. If you have any questions for either one of me or Eric, you can email us. You can get a hold of us through social media. We would love to talk to you. And until next week, have a great week. Try to put those things in your life that will help you feel good, be good, and it's all good.
It's all good. I'm loving living. It's all good. It's all good. I'm loving living. It's all good.